So he pulls out from his prop inventory. He's like, I need you to turn this into a sword. And that was a trench knife from World War One.
Oh.
Trench knife from World War One has like a knuckle duster,
Okay.
and then a spike at the pommel, and then a little guard, and then the blade coming up. It's built for a single hand use for a small little dagger. Well,
Okay.
they had a 21-inch blade. And I said, well, you're probably going to want to elongate the handle. And he asked, what else can we do to make it look handmade? We can carve the maker's mark into it. Who would have made it? We'll make it look like it's been stamped into the brass on one side. And on the other side, we can put like a serial number and we'll just stamp it in there. He loved that idea.
Welcome to The Practical Filmmaker, an educational podcast brought to you by the Filmmaker Institute and Sunscreen Film Festival, where industry professionals talk nuts and bolts and the steps they took to find their success today. On today's show, Atlanta-based prop fabricator Eric Anthony talks props, working as a non-union vendor with union productions like Marvel, and we also take the liberty of veering slightly off topic to compare our experiences as Asians growing up in the South. Find the full transcripts and more at thepracticalfilmmaker.com. I'm your host, Tanya Musgrave, and today we're talking props. Eric Anthony is an Atlanta-based hand prop maker, fabricator, forger, you name it. His works can be seen in Black Adam, Till, and across the Marvel Universe, like in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision, all the things. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, props.
Well, first of all, let me start out by saying you said prop maker. Prop maker is actually a union-covered position that's in construction.
Oh.
I'm a prop fabricator.
Okay. This is awesome. This is great. Okay, so as a prop fabricator, how did you get to where you are now?
Well, back in 2004, 2005, I had a beer with a guy at the Atlanta Blade Show, and the guy said that he worked on The Last Samurai, and I was like intrigued.
What?
I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he cut out these swords, all the samurai swords for The Last Samurai. And I was like, please put me in contact with your guy. About a week later, I kid you not, I was on the floor sleeping in the showroom of the famous Tony Swatton.
Oh my gosh.
Tony Swatton, I basically emulate what he does, but I do it over here in my own style.
Yeah.
He's actually like not even in the union and lives in Burbank, California, has a showroom called The Sword and the Stone. He's changed his location. He basically makes the hero items that then get brought over to the studios where they make copies of them and duplicate them in rubber and resin. So he makes the real deal stuff.
Man. Okay, so let's update our viewers. Tony Swatton, legendary. Would you say bladesmith?
He's a bladesmith, armorer. Yeah. He actually had a similar beginnings than I did. I started in jewelry. He began doing lapidary work with making cutting and stones.
Yeah.
So we had that kind of kindred spirit. And my first gig with him, I worked on The Legend of Zorro, Pirates of the Caribbean, the Capital One credit card commercial campaigns, with all the Vikings.
Yeah, all the Vikings, yeah. What's in your wallet?
Exactly. Yeah. So when I was telling people I was making weapons for a Capital One commercial, it was like really confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah, I looked him up. I mean, he was part of some legendary stuff, like Legend of Zorro, yes. But I mean, way back in the day, too. Not way back in the day, but like Hook and Blade and Buffy.
Yeah, he was even featured on Hook.
Wait, what?
He was the one that's grinding or forging the hook in the opening sequence.
Oh.
So, yeah, he made the hook, but he also made the daggers and the swords and all that jazz. And I would say that I think that that's part of one of his first big gigs that he did.
Yeah.
But I can't be for sure. But I mean, he's known for so many other things.
Yeah.
He doesn't only do film. He does commercial stuff too. He does rockers like rock stars. He does like Lady Gaga's armor. And he does this stuff for Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson and like some anything metal and hand fabricated you see on any kind of entertainment form, he does. Like it's amazing.
And he just happened to be. Wait, is he the guy that you had a beer with?
No.
Oh, okay.
I actually don't even know who it was. And I actually asked him, I asked Tony recently, I said, who is the guy that referred me to you? Because I didn't ever catch his name. I mean, literally was just shooting the breeze with him.
Yeah.
We don't know. He and I don't know.
Neither.
But we've been friends. We've been friends since 2005.
Dang, that's amazing. Okay, so all right, you end up sleeping on this floor and working with Tony. How do things progress from there?
All right. So I don't do anything with TV and film for another 3 years.
Okay.
Because I had this awesome experience. I get excited about the work that I'm doing. I try and do some things here. I buy movie props as a memorabilia collection. I started buying props from the Prop Store of London, which is like a company that sells stuff through the studios. Okay. And so I had all these weapons, and I was collecting them to have as like, I don't know, almost like specimen pieces, like to look at on how they're put together. I started following all the other fabricators across the world. Yeah. Terry English, Simon Atherton. I mean, there's so many, but off the top of my head, like, for example, Simon Atherton, he's an armorer in the UK, and he made the Alien Pulse rifle. But Simon also does armor. Yeah. Terry English does armor all the way back to like Excalibur. Like Adam Savage with Mythbusters, he loves people like creators. Yeah. And Adam Savage and I have the exact same fans, or like not the same fans. We are fans of the same people. And he got a chance to go over to Weta Workshop and actually work with Peter Lyon. And who made all the stuff for Lord of the Rings. Yeah. I know Peter Lyon, and I can't even do that. I'm like, I call out Peter. I was like, I see what you did with Adam. What can I do to get out there? And he's like, you're going to have to talk to my boss. I didn't set that up. I'm like, So we are lovers of the same craft. Mm-hmm. My beginnings with metal began with jewelry. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Georgia State University, and I graduated. I'm the last jewelry graduate with that. So that's where my education comes from. First timers and new people in the industry, they often ask, well, how do I even begin? Yeah. I came up with an art degree. But that's actually not what you absolutely have to have. It just exposed me to all the different materials. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you said you were the last one that graduated. Did they discontinue that program?
They discontinued the program. It became a part of the sculpture division. And then I guess it went away because there was no teacher that would be able to. I was even, my instructor was even like a tenure track teacher. Like he wasn't even supposed to be, there for very long. Okay. And they were waiting to fill the full-time position.
Yeah. So,
but there are other programs.
You said your first credit for the art department was Legend of Zorro, and you wouldn't do anything for another, 3+ years. So, using that as your first stepping stone, in that pivot between, kind of being under him, apprentice, I don't know what you would call it. Yeah, but to becoming your own entity, what was one of the biggest curveballs that you were thrown as you were like kind of venturing into your own, especially into the film and television world, which you weren't trained in?
Communication between departments and knowing who to talk to. I just knew that Tony spoke with the prop master a lot of the times. And I was only there for a couple of weeks. So I didn't have an in-depth, full run of show work making things. I was there for a little bit of time. And then I used him to gain information on where to go. Tony was the one that tipped me off with my first Georgia-based job that I did. Okay. And he said, hey, something's come down the line where they're filming in Georgia and it's picking up. You might want to go check it out. My first big job was Revolution. Was an NBC series, Revolution. And Tony gave me the address of where to go. And I walked in. I asked, where's the prop department? They pointed me, it was downstairs. While I'm walking down the hall, I walked by Jon Favreau.
What?
He's in the hallway. I was like, I tried to like maintain my because at this point that's only like the third time I've ever seen a celebrity. Yeah. And I just kind of just nonchalantly walked by. I was like, okay, that was cool. The guy from Iron Man. And I didn't even put two and two together that he was the director, and he was directing that episode, the pilot episode. Okay. And so I go in there and introduce myself as a sword maker, weapons maker, and the guy that I forget the first prop master's name off the top of my head, and he just threw me a bunch of work. He's like, these swords came in, they're the wrong shape, wrong size. I need you to make this and make it look like it's handmade. And I had 23 swords to make in a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, all right, well, you came in just for today, but I hope you wore your work clothes because
Right.
I have stuff for you.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I had a setup to be able to handle it, but
Yeah.
I had never cast rubber before at that point.
Oh, interesting. How
And
was
the
that?
only way that I had to figure it out is I had to say, all right, the only way is I need to find out what material will cure fast, and then I can paint them.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. I just figured it out. I contacted my people over at the engineer guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're always so helpful with fabrication questions. I explained what the situation was and what I was going to do with the metal side of things and what they can help me out with the plastic and rubber, a solution, a quick solution. And see, with pouring chemicals, you can get different cure times, but there's advantages and disadvantages of certain solutions that you mix together. Sometimes it's either too brittle or too hard or too soft and too floppy. And that's where you can see something really fake.
Perfect for a sword.
Yes. So that's why there are so many questions I ask.
Yeah.
Prop masters, buyers, other people that come to me, even art directors that come to me. I ask all the questions of how the prop's being used. Going back to the curveballs is knowing the communication between departments and what is needed to be made as a prop maker. You need to know what you're making, how many different versions of it are, and then who has the final say-so of what it is before you begin.
Okay. It sounds like that there's a little bit of a story behind, like, because you picked that right out. You're like communication between departments or even knowing what materials. Was there something that went wrong there?
Oh, yeah.
Give an example.
Well, for example, when I was brought on with that job, the prop master ordered another guy named Brian in LA to make these. They looked like brass knuckles.
Okay.
But they were gold. They were brass knuckles. They had the slot to put the sword blade in, and they were bolted together, and it was a brass knuckle sword. There needed to be more explanation about what that needed to be. It looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was made out of aluminum, but it was machined. It was like perfect machined, milled. It looked like something like a gear shifter on a car from like you can get at Pet Boys. So it looked really cool. And it was probably very expensive to make. And he had a whole bunch of them.
Oh no.
But the storyline was that the lights went out. There was no technology. They couldn't use machines.
Oh,
and
okay.
It was gold, but it was anodized. So that's a chemical process you need electricity for.
Yeah. Okay.
And it needed to be made out of something that was cast. So I was like, all right. And he pulls out from his prop inventory. He's like, I need you to turn this into a sword. And that was a trench knife from World War I.
Oh.
Trench knife from World War I has a knuckle duster, and then a spike at the pommel, and then a little guard, and then the blade coming up. But it's built for a single hand use for a small little dagger. Well, they had a 21-inch blade, and I said, well, you're probably going to want to elongate the handle. He asked, what else can we do to make it look handmade? And I said, well, we can carve the maker's mark into it. Who would have made it? And he said, I got the idea. He brings to me the logo of the Monroe Militia. And I was like, oh, cool. We'll make it look like it's been stamped into the brass on one side. And on the other side, we can put like a serial number and we'll just stamp it in there. And they all have the same serial number. But he loved that idea of that handmade look with the production line assembly. Almost presumed that it was made by a maker that had a production line. So yeah, that was definitely a miscommunication between what was sent from the prop master to the maker and what came down the line from the art director.
Do you find yourself like ever caught in the middle between all of these where, I mean, because you're the one that's forging these things. And if you have somebody, if like people are not talking and you're just like, all right, here's what's going to happen. What it makes me think of is the effects studios that did, the live tiger from Life of Pi. And they were talking about how they went under. They filed for bankruptcy because of how the system was set up where, okay, we're going to pay for X amount of shots and, oh, it's wrong. because of the miscommunication, and it has to trickle back up. But they didn't budget for the time that it would take to redo those shots, Like, is it something where you guys have to eat that cost, or do you charge for it?
No. As a vendor, you charge for it.
Okay, all right.
It has to be eaten up by the production.
All right.
It's not the vendor's fault that something happens. Case in point, with Day Shift, I had a series of weapons that I rented at a low cost because they were nearby and they could come by and pick them up. And we're talking maybe 60 to 75 weapons that line the wall inside the pawn shop of Troy's pawn shop, and the scene with Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
Well, they were asking me to give them the same rates for a reshoot as they did here. And I said, no, I can't do that, because what they did here, they came and picked and brought it back immediately after they were done. This was the reshoots that were going to be done in LA.
Oh.
So these things had to be packed up, inventoried, and shipped.
Ooh.
But fortunately, all they needed to do was send me pictures of each wall. And I was able to go, all right, this is mine, this is mine. And I gridded and mapped out where everything went in the set.
Mm-hmm.
And it saved them potentially thousands of dollars, because I knew I could look at a wall and say, all right, that's an AR-15, that's an MP5, there's my bazooka, that's my long sword. And so I just took their pictures, printed them out, and I said, this is wall A1, A2, A3. And then I taped the corresponding number, wrapped it up, and put it in the shipping box. But that was a lot of work,
Yeah. No,
I don't know where I was going with that, but that's one of those situations where I couldn't give them the same rate they did here because it was significant, and they had to put the budget for that.
Yeah. So, okay, as a vendor, no part of your job is actually on set, correct?
Incorrect.
Okay.
I am often asked to either A, deliver, because transpo is not available. They need to use me as transportation technically, which I know is breaking the rules according to the union. They're supposed to have a transpo truck pick up what I make and drop off what I make, even if it's a small thing.
Okay.
But time crunch wise, it just sometimes doesn't happen. It can't happen. I have to be there. I've been asked to come on as specialty talent recently for a show called Die Hard. I played Kevin Hart's body double, covered up in head to toe in a welding mask. They didn't. You won't know it's me.
Yeah.
It's not out yet, so I can't say much about it. But Kevin Hart does not forge steel, and they needed me for a forging scene. Okay. And that's a very specialized and dangerous talent, because I'm working with 3,000 plus degree steel. We had the fire marshal there. I made sure that safety was the main concern. I've been asked to be an armorer now 4 times. The last time was a confusion because they needed to have a real gun on set for the scene. And my policy is I don't send my real gun. I can't. Georgia law, I cannot rent my gun to somebody and then they pass it on to somebody else's hands. Okay. I have to go with it. Yeah. So the confusion is that I needed to be there. I was going to be on set in the parking lot, but then I made a call to one of my friends that was working on it, and I said, hey, I just want to make sure, touch base with you, that you know that I'm coming. I have my live gun. And he's like, wait, there's no live guns on it. So the safety person didn't know that the props were real. Well, we can go down a rabbit hole.
Buddy, we could.
So I won't go into that.
We'll just look at Pandora's box. We won't open it.
Right. So I've been asked to be an armorer. I've been asked to be a DJ on screen. These are my DJ headphones.
Okay, because you are also a DJ.
I have been a DJ since '98. And then I've been asked to be a puppeteer.
Random. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Mike Sabo had hired me to make a giant 16-foot Dr. Manhattan. And as a parade float, it was a big parade float where my friend Sonny was the feet. I was the right hand, and my other friend, Sonny's brother, Nin, was the left hand. Okay. And so this thing was huge. We had to be directed by the radio to where to walk, and because we were the main thing in the background being focused on. And the scene is supposed to be in Saigon, where a terrorist bomber blows up the crowd for the TV series Watchmen.
Okay.
I got paid to build the prop, and then it was a surprise to me that I actually went in as a SAG person and got paid as a SAG puppeteer performer.
Dang.
Yep. The forging scene is a SAG covered position too, so I haven't gotten paid yet, but I'm getting the contract in the works right now from the production for Kevin Hart's production.
Whoa. Okay. So these are undoubtedly, I mean, you're saying some big names here. Like these are undoubtedly union projects.
Yep.
Are you required to be union then, like as your puppeteer, as your, like, I mean, I guess those are SAG covered, but as a forger and fabricator, are you required to be in the union to be part of this?
No, in Georgia, since it's a right to work state, you don't have to be in the union. Ever since I began, I've been in contact with the folks at the 479, and Luana is my main contact who handles new recruits or whatever. She's the one that answers the phones there. She and I are good friends. She's coached me through and through. And every time I even went recently, like the past couple of years, to get an in-depth conversation with Mike Aiken and ask the questions that I needed because I was approached to join the 800 union, the art directors union, and I wanted to be sure which road was the best for me, or if I needed to be in one or the other or both, because I've also been a prop master and an assistant prop master.
Okay.
So every time I've explained what I do, because they follow my social media, they follow my Facebook page, and I work from home. Mm-hmm. All my fabrication is done from home. It's a majority of what I do. If I was working on set every time, then yeah, of course. But a majority of my work, we're talking 90 to 95% of my work that I do is at home. Mm-hmm. And I'm better suited to serve the union as a Georgia-based vendor because the productions get a tax break from me being a Georgia-based company.
Oh, okay.
And that is where it benefits the industry. Lo and behold, I was even born here. I was born in DeKalb General back in 98, or back in 1980. And 98. 1980. I graduated in 98 high school. So, but yeah, I was born at DeKalb General. So I'm as Atlantan as you can get.
Yeah.
I own a home here. I grew up here. I'm from the area.
Yeah.
And I've tried to justify even joining the union. But what would happen is I would still be doing my stuff at home. Mm-hmm. And I don't only rely on on-set work and union rates and all that. Yeah. I do assess a job with my own value of my time, and it changes if I'm rushed. I do rush fees, but I'm lenient on my clients. My clients being art directors, prop masters, set decorators, set dressers, buyers. Who else? Actors themselves. So it's a broad variety, but most of the time it's prop masters.
Yeah. Okay, so when you're talking about rates, let's talk about that for a little bit. Say somebody wants to get into what you're doing. What is a newcomer who is entering into this field, what could they expect for pay? Is it like a project rate, a day rate per piece? Like, what could they expect?
It's completely up to them. Most of the time when they're learning, they need to just fixate on, all right, I'm going to get $25 an hour. I estimate this will take me 10 hours. I'm going to clock myself when I begin, or if I choose not to clock myself, just look back and realize how much time you spent on that, even with the conversations and the going back and forth. If you're asked to do it over again, or if you're, you have to be in the business mindset of knowing your own value. That is for the actual labor. And then there is costs of the materials that is easily calculated if you buy the materials just for that job. And this is a situation that I'm getting into with my accountant now, that I don't really clock my expenses as well as I should. I also reuse and recycle as much as I possibly can. So sometimes the materials don't cost me anything. It's just the knowledge behind it. It's knowing how to work with it, knowing how to take a stick from the backyard, dip it in some fire clay and make torches. And that's what I did for Black Adam. I I knew how to work with the materials, and
Yeah.
I wowed the production, because the production came to me and they said, "Oh, these torches, we need something that doesn't burn." And I was
Mm.
like, "Well, I didn't tell them this, but I was like, I know how to fix that.
Yeah.
It's putting the same material that goes inside my forge onto wood." And I did a demonstration, and I took a blowtorch, and I shot a video with my phone, and I took a blowtorch, and I lit the torch on fire, and it was glowing red.
Yeah.
And then I just took a video of it, and then it's just a little bit of smoke off of it. And then it was back to looking like clay again.
What?
I was like, that's how you do it. Yeah. So I essentially
Yeah.
cured clay on top of wood.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so they had a torch that they can wrap with a cloth and burn with whatever fuel, with special effects. They can burn with the fuel. They may have thought of that, but see how that kind of dipped into the world of special effects.
Mm-hmm.
They needed it done and handmade looking. And sometimes special effects doesn't make a prop, or in all actuality, they probably should have gotten without going to me, they would have gone to the prop master, and the prop master would have brought that to the special effects and say, "Hey, can you light this on fire without burning it?" Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's ways that could have been done that way, but I just take those kind of jobs as they come and solve the problems of what they need. I did the same thing with a body for the prop master, James
you
Brothers.
need to light a body on fire?
Yeah, we had to light a body on fire for Resurrection.
Okay.
The TV show Resurrection.
Yeah.
And I think because of the ratings of it, they couldn't show like skin or hair being on fire. So James took a picture of him on the floor, of himself on the floor in a certain position. Yeah. And I took that and I sculpted a body out of chicken wire, fiberglass, pool noodles.
Oh, okay.
And to shape a body that I could dress and redress, and they can light on fire and it wouldn't burn.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was up to props to be able to provide the structure for them to light on fire.
So when you're coming up with that kind of a thing, is it like, would it be a per piece type of thing that you would price out, or like, all right, for this body, it's this, or is it like strictly for this whole entire project, you've got me like 20 man days or something like that along those lines?
Right. It just like
any and all?
I shoot from the hip with the estimate.
Okay.
And because they know that I deliver every time. I've never missed a mark. And if things go wrong with the build, I always am there to take care of it.
Yeah.
As a business owner, I address anything and handle and own up to it and make up for it. You have to. Mm-hmm. But things can go wrong with paint, with the cure time, with bubbles, with speed. Like if they're asking me to make something and it's an experiment, like I sometimes I say, I don't know what will come of it. I'm going to do my best and I'll take pictures along the way. Yeah. And then you can decide if you want to pull the ripcord. This is how much I think it's going to be. Let's get started, because you don't really have a choice at this point. Yeah. And I was like, if it's not what you want, you don't have to pay for it. I say that I do that, and I get started, and I put myself out there on a lot of the time, especially with newer people that don't know the quality of my work. And then when things like that happen, or like let's say it's not satisfactory, they can't use it or whatever with what they need because it was just rushed, then they make up for it in other ways. Like these are my friends that I mean, it is seriously a family of people that I adore and admire and would do anything for, and they know that.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about some of the things that go wrong with your materials. Do you have some examples?
Yeah, humidity, for example.
Okay.
We're in hot
You're in Georgia.
In Georgia, very humid environment. Polymer, plastics, epoxy resins. The chemical reaction of mixing resins together causes gases to accumulate inside it. You also need something called a degasser sometimes if you're sucking out, you're creating things in a vacuum environment. Humidity can also affect paint and acrylics and clear coats, and you almost need an air conditioned controlled environment. But sometimes you can't do that in a home. Since I work at home, I have my sunroom that is quarantined off from the air circulation, so it creates fumes. One of the things I actually did, going back to James Brothers, is I made for the gifted. I made it like 2-3 dozen glasses of poured resin that looked like they were glasses that had ice cubes in them, and they wanted them solidified so that they didn't clink and they move around, but they looked like there was liquids in them. What I had to think fast is I bought a dehumidifier, and I went underneath my closet, underneath the stairs, and I emptied out everything into the hallway. I stuck my dehumidifier inside the closet, and that's where they cured, because pouring that resin in, and even in my home, was causing bubbles. Everything looked carbonated. So in order for some of the drinks to not look carbonated, I came up with that on the fly.
Okay. And it fixed it.
It did.
Nice. Okay, so those are some of the things that have gone wrong with some of like the materials and stuff like that. You did mention the communication thing, between departments, but what is something that is usually overlooked when dealing with a vendor like yourself?
I would say one thing that can be overlooked is color. I tell my prop masters and my clients that I suck at painting like high-end paint jobs on props. The scenic painters that are with the union do wonders to painting. So I often try to tell them, look, you need to get these things to the painters, to your guys that are hired to do their magic, because I know that I do not possess the time and energy to getting all the equipment for airbrushing, painting. And that's another skill that's so intricate, to put like a faux wood grain on something. Or I was talking to Daniel Graham today. He's a painter that's out of work right now, but he just filled a job right away. I was talking to him this morning about a job that needs a marble finish, and it needs to be like a faux marble. And he was telling me how he would do it. And I was like, see, I don't do any of that. Like, I would build the structure that would look like marble structurally, and then the marble finish is put on top of it. So we fake it. And it's not compensated. A lot of the times it's overlooked for compensating the time and the skill of the painter to be able to do that. Paint can only dry so fast.
This is true. We
had that problem with Wolfpack recently too.
Okay. Well, where like you have the thing made, but in order for it to look legit, it still had another stage that wasn't taken into account.
We had a rubber knife that they wanted a chrome finish on.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, there is one technique that does a chrome finish on a flexible rubber surface, and it takes a lot of time, and it's very, very costly.
Yeah.
I had it in another fabricator's possession to handle the surface finish of it, but there wasn't enough time for him to do it. We did it in like less than 48 hours. We built two rubber knives. We had to mold one and pull out 3 copies. Yeah. One copy have just the grip, and then the other one be as bright and silver looking as possible, because it's supposed to look like silver. But, that mirror reflection is not easy to get on a flexible surface. And you can imagine them.
I don't know. You have those markers that can color chrome.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use those?
Not happening over wide spaces. It's great for a little tiny little handwriting and makes it look and then oftentimes those things that you see on like commercials or little things, they're doctored. Yeah, they're doctored up. It's not the real deal.
There's like no way. Okay.
I suggest you get some and try it. It's not at the film quality level. And that's the other thing. Also, just because it's a temporary surface, a surface change doesn't mean that it's built to last scene after scene, take after take.
This is true.
A lot of the times they're just one time. That's why they need like 3 or 4 or 5 of them as backups.
I was just talking with somebody about always having duplicates. He's an indie director, and he's just like, oh my gosh, please just have duplicates and have duplicates of your stuff because it's going to get destroyed.
Even on my first job, I was working on one of dozens of these swords that Rufus Sewell used in Legend of Zorro. They were having problems with them breaking in Mexico because of the intense fighting scenes. Ooh. So by the time I got there, they had already been made. I was making the backups that were being shipped overnight to Mexico for them to film the scenes.
Okay.
There was a scene where it drops on the train tracks and gets ran over by the train.
Okay.
Well, the prop couldn't survive the fall. So every one that they dropped during the take would break. I assume. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So but I assume that that's what was happening, because we had pieces of them that were sent back, and we were casting new ones. And I was doing the wax work to send out to cast. And anyways.
So now we're going to ask about some tools of your trade, and I'm going to kind of focus on the crosshairs between you being a fabricator and actually working within the film industry. Not necessarily fabrication tools, but how it relates to you being on set. What was maybe even a surprising or, just like a reliable resource that you found, or a gear, gadget, all that stuff that you found was useful to have around?
I tell my prop crew whenever I'm on it, even doing a props assistance, you got to have a multi-tool.
Mm.
Hands down. I was on set yesterday doing a pickup for the game, and I was talking to the young lady there. I whipped out my Leatherman like 3 different times and changed something and closed something. I was helping her open up straps because they were moving all their assets out of there. Yeah. And I was helping her strap the things to the transpo truck. And I was like, you don't have a multi-tool? Like, you gotta have a multi-tool.
Yeah.
That's my number one tool that I always keep on me. But any prop person would have that.
Okay. How about a new gadget that revolutionized how you worked?
So, the biggest bread and butter resource tool that I use online is the Atlanta Art Department Facebook group.
Oh,
there's like roughly 4,000 people that network on there. Not all of them are in the film industry. We found that out recently over the years, but at least everybody is somewhat connected. Jessica Sanchez is one of the ones that is a mediator or founder of the Atlanta Art Department group. I've been with the group, the Facebook group, since there are roughly around 1,200 people. It's mostly set dressers. As a networker, that is my most reliable tool. And I actually... that would be more useful than a Leatherman on set. Is my networking with the Atlanta Art Department Facebook group. I've met most of my friends that way.
Nice. Can anyone join?
Yes, but there is a vetting. I think you have to answer a few questions, and you have to kind of have a little bit of experience with, maybe have volunteered or been a PA.
Yeah.
I always am surprised. I was on set at Wolfpack, and I asked the kid that was there, I think his name's Christian. I said, you're on the group, right? And he's like, no, what's that? I'm surprised that there's anybody that would be on set already that's not even joined the Atlanta Art Department group. But apparently there are. And that's why occasionally I post, hey, special thanks out there for getting me this job, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for, and I tell people that. I said, don't go on the group and ask for work. Go on the group and praise the people that get you the jobs, or offer a resource that you have, like offer a skill, or ask a question about a build and someone will respond, or ask a question about a source. And, those are those kind of things that get the conversation started. Everybody's a family on there, and it's not welcome for people to be badgering anybody and bullying anybody. And that's what I love about the people there.
So I was recently revisiting some of my older episodes on this podcast, and like around New Year's last year, I'd kind of delved into like my own story as well. And we had talked about these kinds of stories that make us and like become our why. And I had totally forgotten that I was wanting to ask that questions of my guests more, like to find their why. Is there a story for you that best demonstrates your why, of like why you're in this industry and why you're doing what you're doing?
Time and time again, I find myself overly ecstatic about what I do and what I build. I'm proud of it. I have a lot of pride. I have 3 children, and I like to share the accomplishments to the point where I can pause and freeze the frame and show them what I made on Netflix. So, it's the exhilaration of saying, okay, cool, that was something big that I was a part of. And then recently it was just monumental and emotional to be a part of the movie Till's, the actor's ring that was supposed to be Emmett Till's ring that identified his body. It's such a weird thing because the movie is so difficult to watch. Like, I got early access screening to it, and it's a hard movie to watch, but it's so important that people hear that story. And it's just, I feel honored to have been asked to be a part of it. Like, it's cool. Growing up in the South, being a part of that, even with my own family's history. My mom she was white. She was born in Tucker, Georgia, and my dad's Chinese. And they were not allowed to be married in Georgia. They had to go to Florida to get married.
Wow.
When they got married, because it was illegal for a Chinese and a white woman to get married.
Wow.
So I've even dealt with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the 60s, we dealt with that here. And so it hit close to home. So my passion is working with jewelry. I made all the badges for it too. And I did some cool things with the job. I did asked to be a props assistant on there for like 3 different days. I saw Whoopi Goldberg there while I was there. I love doing the stuff on set. You can tell that I'm passionate about it. I'm not just all starstruck or whatever about meeting actors. It's more about the family that's there.
Yeah, yeah. Till has come up several times in my feed, like with and without controversy, I would say, the trauma that comes from making these stories. But I think another perspective is that a lot of people of color have found opportunities to collaborate and make something together that, I mean, I know that it's changing, but sometimes it can be something to have to get through and over as a person of color. I mean, I don't know if you've ever come across situations like that, or if it was just something that you just never even thought of. Like,
No,
I never
absolutely.
had to deal with it. Yeah.
No, I'm 42 years old and I'm the youngest of 5. And so I have a unique and interesting perspective when it comes to the prejudices in the area too, and growing up in the area too, and seeing the development of Snellville where I grew up, and also having the perspective from both my mother and my father. We have a variety of personalities in my own immediate family. I have my sister-in-law who just recently passed away, who was part of a gay marriage. My sister is a lesbian, and she raised a young kid with autism with her wife. And there's that. there's all the baggage that came from my sister's experience growing up being gay in the area, and then my connections with her and the community here in Atlanta with her friends. And then my other sister, she was multicultural, multiracial, because he wasn't full black, he was half black. My sister's marriage, in that sense, caused a rift in my family as well with my own parents.
Interesting.
So
yeah,
it's been a weird dynamic when it comes to all the problems that come with that. And it's so ironic being multiracial myself.
Yeah.
So growing up, I didn't consider myself as a race. I just was, I knew that I was different, but I got teased, I got bullied. Yeah. And I gravitated towards my other Asian friends. There were like 5 at my high school. And we're still friends today. I'm friends with most of them, but like it's vastly different from the 90s to now. And even when being a DJ growing up, I started DJing all my other friends' weddings, and it was very funny because if you're Asian living in Atlanta and you go to a wedding, you're bound to have 3 or 4 friends that are at that wedding that that you didn't even realize they were going to be at the same wedding. And that's how I did so many spin-off weddings, DJing for them. It was fun.
I don't really think about it that often, to be honest. It's a very interesting and unique situation to like talk with somebody about this who happens to have Asian roots too, because I was adopted by a Caucasian family. So I grew up in rural Virginia, and the only Asian on the mountain. And of course, there's only like 60 people on the mountain. So, it's very small, very, very Southern, and, that kind of a thing. And it is very much an interesting thing where you can have a soft spot in your heart for the South. Those people watched me grow up, and they would defend me to the death, and they're the camo, deer shooting people that I think that a lot of people will, think that there's like a bone to be had. But a lot of the times you're just like, no, I mean, there's a unique perspective that comes with knowing intimately both sides, right? And how you can like love and have a conversation with both sides. And
absolutely.
I always find it very fascinating to talk to somebody who's had a similar experience like in the South. So thanks for letting me delve into that for a little bit.
Oh, of course. And it's neat because I always love I love it when there's people like with your experience that have been adopted, because you have an inkling of the culture, but you didn't have it in your immediate family. And so in my case, I had a taste of it, but my dad didn't teach me how to speak Chinese. And
me neither. My parents know it. My white parents know Mandarin. Yeah, because they're more Asian than I am.
That's
like
funny.
They spent 6 years over in Taiwan, and so they're teaching me about my culture. And,
wow.
That kind of a thing too.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because we do things, we have family culture, but then there's also what like odd, funny physical. Like I don't know if you can you Asian squat. You know how to Asian squat?
Okay, another hilarious thing. My white brother, who's like 6'3",
You
he
can
can Asian squat. I cannot.
No way.
I cannot. And I have a bone to pick with that because I have a thing. I saw a thing on TikTok that was specifically talking about femur length. And how there are people who mechanically cannot squat. Like they were talking about like weightlifting culture and everything because the mechanics of like the ratio between their torso and their femur and their shin, their tibial length. And so, yes, I would like to just point out that I have a long femur and I claim that as the reason that I cannot Asian squat.
No way. Wow. Yeah, when I first started working with metal and making things in middle school, I would find myself sitting on the floor, squatting on the floor, working that way. My sisters all remember it too. I mean, I don't have any pictures of myself doing that, but when I was working with metal and making stuff, making jewelry, even before that, when I would be playing with my GI Joes in elementary school, I would play that way, and I would be often squatting in the mud and the dirt in the same way. And I can still do it. And I often find myself when I'm building props, I'm working on the floor versus setting up and clearing a table because that takes too long. I'm ADHD, so I take medicine for it, but it doesn't always work. And I end up on the floor because there's more space on the floor.
Yeah.
Because all the other surfaces are taken up. So but anyways, that's very interesting.
Yeah, the thing that I wrap up every episode with is what question should I have asked you?
Maybe the average build time.
Oh, yes.
You don't think about how long certain things will take. Yeah, you price things out, but you also have to practice with your speed. And oftentimes when you're giving an estimate, or writing it out and doing a work order, which I learned is different than an estimate. Just recently, writing out a work order and saying this is how it's going to cost. You just kind of got to factor in what's happened in the past and what you're confident that you know the time it would take to build something. And you got to calculate if you're going to have to ship it or if you're going to have to go and pick it up and where it is, what time of the day it is. Is that place closing for the weekend and you're not going to be able to do it? And, oh crap. I've got to build something and I promised them it'll be here on Monday, but the place is closing and it's Friday night. And the place is not going to open up until Monday morning. So those are those things that can go wrong too, that you have to calculate how long it's going to take and how long it's going to take to get in your hands so you can begin. So
rattle off a bullet list of just like some basic things, like a sword, a dagger, at something that you're starting.
That's so hard. That to know how long it takes. Well, it's just kind of like somebody saying, well, I want to buy a car. You know?
What kind of car?
There's all different factors.
Okay. So are you talking about like months or weeks or like days?
It can actually take several weeks. I wouldn't say it takes months. It takes months and potentially years if I'm doing a commission where I'm building 2 Mongolian swords, and it's taken me 3 years. And because the client wants me to make them by hand from start to finish and unassisted and on my own time to be my best work ever. And it has been. But I've gone through the loss of my mother, the loss of a pet during that time. So like and the COVID. So there's been all kinds of hiccups along the way. So that's an example of something that could take years. And that's just 2 swords that are 30-inch long swords, but they're big project. But you also got to know if you're going to involve anybody else. Like if you're going to involve a 3D modeler and a 3D printer and like someone to cast, someone else to make the rubber, someone else to do the finishing, the painting. And I involve as many people as I possibly can. And I reward the people that help me because they reward me by getting the job done at the same time. And it just goes under my banner and my arsenal of friends, people that have equipment, water jet cutting, or special machines, lathes, other kinds of skills. So sourcing out the people that know how to do the things that you can't do or you don't have time to do. That's another important skill.
So, okay, loved having you on. Where can people find you or follow your work?
On Facebook, they can find me there. I do have a YouTube channel. I put tutorials on my YouTube channel, but I also do funny, silly videos as well. So beware, product reviews and things like that. Facebook is my primary mode of communication. And on my Facebook page, I put my real cell phone number.
Okay.
So people can see on my page my contact info, my cell phone, my email, Instagram, and I sometimes do TikTok videos, but that's it. Mostly Instagram, Facebook.
What are your handles for those?
I gotta look up that. I think it's at DJ Eric Anthony. Let me see, because of my DJ roots. On Facebook, it's Eric Anthony Leong. On Instagram, DJ Eric Anthony Atlanta on Instagram.
So for your Insta, DJ Eric Anthony Atlanta.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
I am the only Eric Anthony Leong on Facebook.
Okay. And what's your website?
It's just Eric Anthony Productions with an S.com. Yeah.
All right. Nice. Eric, thanks so much for sharing your experience, your story, and your time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed this interview, follow us right here and on Instagram, ask us questions, and check out more episodes at thepracticalfilmmaker.com. Be well and God bless. We'll see you next time on The Practical Filmmaker.